announcement. Juozas is an announcement. Thank you. In the morning, I talked to Valdas Adamkus, His Excellency President Valdas Adamkus, and I told him about this conference, and he insisted on me passing on to this conference his heartfelt wishes as an ecologist. Thank you very much. As always, we would like to start with the voting for the questions, and I will ask this question, raise this question with each of you. Which is the biggest value of marine energy that you can see? The biggest benefit of marine energy. Please make the statement, and people will like it. Aleksandr? It's a simple question. I try to answer this question on a daily basis and to pass on this question, this answer to this question to everyone. Lithuania may become an electricity exporter because today, if we consider the proportion, each probably can imagine what a liter looks like. We generate 0.3 inside, and we import 1.7 from abroad. And secondly, we do not leave to our future generations anything to process. I will add some humor in it. Those who build the land wind turbines, we have heard in the press about the negative feedback, maybe not from the closest neighbors, but from the more remote neighbors or passing by people. And the sea will solve those problems because it's several dozen of kilometers away from the seashore. So it's the best choice. I think our digital facilitator is able to note what is being said. Daiva, what is the biggest benefit of marine energy? Well, I mentioned a number of them. It's very difficult to outline them in a general sense, but the main thing would be energy independence. Energy independence, which, as mentioned by Aleksandr, is the main value. You will be able to generate yourself, and whether you export it or not, it will be yours, it will be green, it will be sustainable jobs, and everything remains in Lithuania. Rokas? Microphone, please. It doesn't matter. Because I come from the investment sector into technologies. The transition from fossil fuels to the new energy structure means power to X. We have a lot of wind and will build more wind. So power to X means that we may generate a lot. And hydrogen also comes into play. And we have the interesting sandbox, which is industry. We have Akmenė cement, and we have Orlen. And hydrogen could serve as the green alternative. And if we reach the 1 gigawatt that we mean, we will probably be able to use the sandboxes. I think that Lithuania is interesting in that it is a small country, and that's why it's easy to make decisions quickly. And we have Kruonis hydro power station, which could be used for that. Well, but our panel is called Marine Energy, is an untapped source of renewable energy. Is it a future trend? maybe it's just a fashion, a trend, because in the area of energy, there are various ways to generate energy. Well, I am absolutely convinced that this is not a one-off trend. Yes, it is a trend, but many European countries that have the possibility work a lot on this topic of marine wind, and they are planning a lot and trying to discover many innovations. Is it the future? It's clear. All the plans in Europe are to become the climate neutral country. And as colleague said, we have the limited opportunities to develop the wind energy, and we are forced to go where there's less contact with people's households and the lesser intervention into the nature. Juozas, Aleksandras. I will be brief. I work with renewable energy on a daily basis, and my question is very simple. Today, every 1/30th kilowatt hour in Europe is generated from marine energy. This is not a fake fact, and there are 20 gigawatt hours in Europe established, and we have the report of Wind Europe from May, and it has made the report where all the countries have to present their plans for technologies, and they have plans to generate 4 times as many of installed power within less than 10 years.
Let me clarify why we don't have it yet. Well, let us not forget that several decades ago, we started solving energy independence problems, and it is quite understandable that only wind would not have been able to solve it. We had to solve gas supply problems. We built ourselves a terminal which is close to this ship. We had to build new connections with Western European, Scandinavian countries and Poland. Until then, the projects were the priority projects, and onshore wind power perhaps was easier to build. But on the other hand, maybe it is good that during this time the technologies have moved on, and we won't have to buy old machines, but we will be able to benefit from the newest technologies. What is the approach of investors to offshore energy? I will approach this topic from another angle. In terms of the whole maritime industry, is the 6th biggest polluter in the world. 60% of costs in shipping industry consists of fuel. Bearing in mind these two aspects, and also thinking about all the ships used for transporting 60,000 ships, per year they emit 1 gigaton of CO2. And around the world, we have 51 gigaton of CO2 emitted around the world. This is quite a big percentage, and amounts to almost 0.5%. So from the 60% used for fuel, we could start our discussion. From the technological point of view, in Norway and Finland, they use ships and ferries that are powered by lithium batteries. Of course, they are quite costly, but it's about the technological economical development of this technology. So the interesting thing is that if we look from this angle, that about 85% would be cheaper fuel if electricity would be used to fuel ships, and we would save also in terms of maintenance, because the costs are not about the acquisition of ships, but also its maintenance. A ship could be used maybe for 50 years, similar to planes. So interestingly, yes, ships at some time were also an invention, a technology. But now in the context of energy, they have four aspects through which we approach the energy revolution: decarbonization, decentralization, digitalization, and deregulation. In this case, deregulation is not that important. We have a lot of players in the port, different companies operating there, but digitalization and decentralization are also interesting. But decarbonization is the most important aspect that will continue to affect the speed of the developments and the implementation or financing of the technologies. In terms of financing, which is very interesting, there is one simple thing here. Today, the biggest financial investor is BlackRock, a company. It manages 1 trillion cash, and its CEO said that we will not finance anymore anything that is related to fossil fuel. So in this transformative context, everybody will be forced to decarbonize their fleets and implement new technologies, otherwise they cannot access capital. Same goes for the largest pension funds in the world and venture capital funds. We invest into early companies that only have an idea and want to create something. But for these companies, the important thing is collaborating with big players who have infrastructure. Ships and fleets, in this case, are managed by the port to implement technological decisions. So yes, it's worthwhile investing, and where you have to ask the investors, but the bigger picture is important while deciding where to invest. But my answer is that in the coming next 100 years, the changes will be huge, because oil has only been used for 100 years. So we as a fund believe that the 100 years that belonged to fossil fuels or oil, the next 100 years will belong to the electricity.
Žadama didelė galia 3,35 gigavato. Tai kiek Lietuvos energetikos poreikio?
How much of Lithuanian energy needs could cater for the offshore wind energy of 3.35? Well, this is the possibility. We have to compare the capacities with the system capacities, because the sea is a large power, and the energy system is a large power as well. So there has to be a balance about the capacity and about the needs. And this question can be answered by the transmission network operator, which runs the infrastructure and has connections with other countries' counterparts. So we see two secure parks, 700 megawatts each. And without further ado, we have to develop 2 stages by 2030 and ensure the generation as quickly as possible, because they are sources of big power that could ensure green electricity. You mentioned that this is going to give energy independence, but let me touch upon the eternal question: how will this affect electricity price? Is it going to become more expensive? Offshore energy development. Well, let me try to answer this question. In the last 5 years, correspondingly, offshore wind technologies has become cheaper by 35%, which is happening thanks to the increasing wind capacity. I don't know what about you and your experience. It's a blitz question to the audience. How long is this ship? Do you know? 200 meters, yes. So if we build this ship and put one on top, this would be the rotor diameter only. And if we put it on a mast, it will be even higher. So to reply to your questions, where the energy and the cheapness of it comes from. So to come back to the direct question, will electricity become more expensive or not? The last auction that took place in 2019, the buying price in France was 44 euros, the wholesale price. Those of you who know about market prices understand that this is an understandable figure. Have we made enough progress in Lithuania to reach this level? Well, it's hard to answer. In 2024, in the auction, then we will see it. But we are quite close, and the prices are not as high as previously. This is obvious. Well, will it become cheaper or more expensive? It depends on when you using it. We used to have a fixed price, now we will have a flexible price because renewable energy sources are characteristic of the fact that their production curve is not stable.
Tada, kai visi vartos, tada kaina bus didesnė, kada visi nevartos, pavyzdžiui, naktį, jinai bus galbūt labai pigi, net ir pigesnė negu dabar vartojama.
So the electricity probably will become even cheaper than now. We have software innovations and technologies. So oil as a commodity is quite complex. It has a lot of byproducts. We're thinking about fuel, but there are other things, oils and so on. So electron has another simple thing. As the previous speaker said, it's like finance, like telecom. It's data movement, and we're just doing the accounting, auditing that is balancing. So software is interesting in this sense because we are optimizing it. So the new energy system will solve optimization problem. How the electricity produced can be delivered where it is most economically beneficial. Thank you, Juozas. We must remember that this is not only about the wind park and the plants that generate electricity, and that's it. We have to bear in mind a number of other projects, as the Vice Minister said. Apart from the accumulation of the energy, and in case of high winds, it can produce a lot, even a surplus. So the hydrogen production could be one of the ways to accumulate it, as well as others. For example, by the time when it gains momentum by 2030, we will have a car fleet of electromobiles whereby they will use a lot of energy. So all the other systems have to be connected in parallel. Of course, this is not all that simple, as might seem. There are several issues. I mentioned that it should be installed further away from people, but there will still be problems. And my advice to the ministry is that you should focus on involving the public. Perhaps even the projects could foresee the possibility for private consumers to contribute, as is the case now with solar energy. digitization that has been broadly discussed could also help this process and be included in the better use of the possibilities of the park. For example, if I have a need for electricity next day or next week and I see the forecasts, I could make a calculation and postpone my activities and buy cheaper electricity in a couple of days. But for that, I need a powerful digital system that could allow me to quickly connect and choose the possibility to choose the supplier and the timing. All of this will be solved by digitization. It is very tightly linked with today's topic. It seems that offshore energy development is a strong idea, but what about, I don't know, do we have a lot of environmentalists among us? But should we ask an environmentalist, are there any negative aspects of this? Who could answer? I could answer because we have started preparatory works for the first project, and we started with the most important aspect, namely human health impact assessment and environmental impact assessment. The first environmental impact study is going to take up to 2 years, and we will devote quite a long time to properly analyze what bird species and other fauna lives there, and flora as well, that could be affected by these projects. So this study of several years has to answer these questions by the auction, and it will guide the project and its development in balance with nature, which is very important in order not to harm certain animal species that live in proximity or migrate. For example, ducks. So this is the starting point. There will be other studies, for example, seabed studies, wind speed studies, in order to calculate the height of the plant in order to be as efficient as possible. So if fish species, certain fish species become extinct, then it's going to be bad. We cannot afford that. Yes. We should, while trying to get the green light for this project, what could be the challenges? Thank you for the question. And this is an excellent opportunity while being in Klaipėda to speak about these challenges with this audience that is so influential. The size of the plants and the technologies are about construction works in the sea. So the preparatory works should be done onshore in order to optimize the process. As Vice Minister said, other countries such as Poland has made a lot of progress in this area. In Poland, 8 projects have been published that will in the near future implement about 6 gigawatt offshore projects in the coming 5 to 6 years. In order to implement this, they intend to invest up to €500 million at Gdynia port. And while we talk about countries' preparedness and willingness to develop offshore energy and the importance of coordination, we have to understand that if some country is ready and has the infrastructure, this could be as the classical joke. The one who gets up in the morning first gets the slippers. So we have ports in Latvia, Poland, and Klaipėda. This mechanism should be actively discussed. Please, microphone to Robertas, because a very good question has been raised. What about transporting the big rotor? Yes, the port of Klaipėda already is actively engaged in building onshore wind energy capacities. The big parts are loaded and transported in companies of the Klaipėda port. And I believe that with certain infrastructure decisions and logistical solutions, Klaipėda port companies could carry out stevedoring or loading works of offshore wind power. I don't think that a new terminal should be built especially for this. The very short, very brief comment on the technology. Differently from onshore wind power plants, offshore technologies have to be assembled in the port. There have to be mini factories built. Yes, the rotors, there are many ways of transporting them to the sea. One way is to transport them already assembled, and another way is to attach the blades to the rotor offshore. It is not clear which one is more optimal. Of course, the developer will have to say which one he chooses, but I believe that assembling rotors onshore would be possible because our companies are quite creative and would find ways of doing it. A very brief reflection, it's a relevant topic. One, we've heard already that onshore and offshore wind power plants differ in size and peculiarities of assembly, and it could be too far to transport them assembled. We would have to assemble them in Lithuania in the port area. So Western Lithuania becomes the economic center focused on offshore energy. And that is why it is very important for our universities to prepare experts able to work in this area, because it's going to become a big industry, and not only in terms of assembly, but also, well, in Poland there are 11 projects, Latvia, Estonia, and Lithuania, so they will need to be maintained. So service centers and hubs should be foreseen as well. We have to think about this. This is a huge opportunity and a potential for Klaipėda to become the center of attention. It's quite an epical project. Please show on screen the results of voting. How many people liked your statements and energy independence? And one sentence each. Well,
Vienas turbūt mano observacija, antra observacija yra tokia, kad yra tokios
The
šalis.
companies use the least R&D in Europe, and Denmark has the most ambitious objective, and there are certain companies as Marska, which are very advanced in industry and need to we need to cooperate with them, and the investment, we have the Green Future Fund, which will invest into those companies. I think these are the good examples. Daiva, what else important can you say? I think this is an excellent project, and I think this is an excellent vision, and the economy in the context of post-COVID economy, I think this is an example of a perfect opportunity. And I think that this is also related to a wider issue, that is energy safety, energy security, which would be ensured in our country much better than currently. And as the colleague has mentioned, maybe we will be the country in Lithuania that will start exporting energy in other countries, not only importing. And probably I may express my delight about the continuation of the ministry's work in terms of this project. This is very important, and this is an objective for 7 to 8 years. This is very comprehensive work, and we need to make use of this possibility. And this is also a possibility for Klaipėda port. Thank you very much.